Hello everyone, this is Yuvaraj Gogoi. So in this video, I'm going to talk about human rights, concept and features. So this video is basically meant for undergraduate level students, and the content has been designed under BA Political Science major syllabus of Dibrugarh University. Now, the objective of this video is to acquaint the students with the concept of human rights and its basic features. As far as the learning outcomes are concerned, I hope that after watching the video, the students would be able to understand the concept of human rights. They will be able to comprehend the features of human rights. So here is the outline of this lecture. First, I'm going to look at the concept of human rights. Then I'll take a bunch of definitions of human rights, and finally there is a discussion on the nature of human rights. First, let us look at the concept of human rights. So human rights are inherent and inalienable rights of human beings. That means, and these are inborn rights, and human being achieves them right at the time of his or her birth, and these rights cannot be separated from a person. And human rights are most basic rights, because without these rights a human life has no meaning. A human being could not be able to live a life of dignity without these rights, and these are essential for ensuring the dignity of every person as a human being, irrespective of one's race, religion, nationality, language, sex, place of birth, or any other factor. Now, here are some of the definitions of human rights. According to UN Center for Human Rights, these are those rights which are inherent in our nature and without which we cannot live as human beings. Then Jack Donnelly, according to him, these are moral rights which have resulted from socially shared moral conceptions of the nature of human person and the condition necessary for a life of dignity. Then another scholar, Kim, according to him, human rights are claims and demands essential to the protection of human life and the enhancement of human dignity, and should therefore enjoy full social and political sanctions. In words of Nickel, human rights are basic moral guarantees that people in all countries and cultures have simply because they are people. So these are some of the definitions of human rights given by different scholars. They are basically emphasizing why these rights are important to everyone and how they constitute the most basic form of rights. Now let me also throw some light on the history of human rights in a brief way. While the concept of human rights is an old one, the contemporary concept of human rights is of relatively recent origin. In fact, it is a development of the post-Enlightenment era. Now let me point you out some of the events that helped in the emergence of the contemporary concept of human rights. So here are some of those events. To begin with, Magna Carta of 1215, then American Declaration of Independence, 1776, French Declaration of the Rights of Man, 1789, Bolshevik Revolution of Russia, 1917, Birth of League of Nations, 1920, Birth of United Nations, 1945, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, International Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, 1965, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, 1966, International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights 1966, International Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, Convention on the Rights of the Child 1989, among others. Now, among these, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948 is a great milestone, because this very document constitutes the most elaborately detailed first human rights document, and many other subsequent human rights documents have been influenced by this very document, so that way is very important for us. Now let me point you out the basic features of human rights. First of all, human rights are inherent rights. These are inborn rights. A person acquires them right at the time of his or her birth. Secondly, human rights are inalienable rights. That means these rights cannot be separated from a person. Just as you cannot separate the trunk of a tree from its roots, in a similar way, you cannot separate human rights from a person. Third, human rights can be called as the most basic rights. These are natural rights, and without these rights, a person would not be able to live a life of dignity. In that way, they constitute the most basic rights of a person. Fourth, human rights are universal. They are applicable to all people living anywhere in the world, irrespective of their religion, language, place of birth, sex, or any other factor. So that way human rights can be called as universal. Fifth, human rights are legal and enforceable. So human rights are not only moral rights, human rights are also legal, in the sense that many constitutions in different parts of the world have codified human rights, and they can be enforced by the court of law in case any violations arise. So human rights today can be called as legal and enforceable. Sixth, human rights aims a human right aims to promote human dignity. So these very rights are supposed to enhance human dignity. So that way they are very significant for everyone. And finally, human rights can be at the same time individual rights, and then you'll find some other category of human rights which can be called as collective rights or group rights. So you can find a variety of human rights. So broadly, these constitute some of the basic features of human rights. Now let me summarize the key points of the video. So we found that human rights are the most basic rights of every human beings, and they are applicable to everyone, and human dignity is not possible without human rights. And we also found that while human rights existed in some form or other throughout human civilization, but the contemporary concept of human rights is of relatively recent origin. So these are some of the references. I hope you liked the video. Thank you.